Our live-in maid, my daughter, laughed on camera. Until one secret changed everything. My daughter filmed me scrubbing her kitchen floor at 6 in the morning, laughed into the camera, and told 40,000 strangers, "Say hi to our live-in maid." She didn't know the house she was standing in, the car in her driveway, and the trust fund paying for her daughter's private school all had my name on them. She was about to find out. Hello everyone. My name is Judy, I'm 71 years old. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Before I tell you what happened, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from tonight. I read every single one of them. And honestly, hearing from all of you is what got me through the hardest year of my life. Now let me tell you my story. I raised one daughter. Just one. Her father passed when she was 19, and after that it was just the two of us against the world, or so I thought. I worked 34 years as a bookkeeper for a family-owned construction company, the kind of job where you learn to read numbers the way other people read faces. I never made a fortune, but I was careful. I saved. I invested a little cautiously the way my late husband taught me. By the time I turned 60, I owned my house outright, had no debt, and had a modest but healthy retirement account. When my daughter's marriage fell apart 3 years ago, she called me crying, saying she couldn't afford to keep the house she and her husband had bought, that she'd lose custody of my granddaughter if she didn't have stable housing, that she was drowning. I did what any mother would do. I stepped in. I paid off the remainder of her mortgage. I put the deed in my name with an agreement handwritten, then later notarized, that she and my granddaughter could live there as long as they needed, rent-free, and that I would move in with them so we could keep each other company and split the bills going forward. I sold my own house to make it work. I thought I was building a family home. I thought I was being smart. For the first year, things were good. My daughter thanked me constantly. My granddaughter, who was 8 at the time, called our arrangement the sleepover that never ends. I cooked, I helped with homework, I paid my share of utilities and groceries, and every month I quietly transferred extra money into a savings account earmarked for my granddaughter's future, because that's what grandmothers do, isn't it? We build for the next generation without asking for applause. But somewhere in that second year, something shifted. My daughter started a social media page. Cooking videos, home organization tips, day-in-the-life content. It grew fast, faster than either of us expected. And I noticed the tone of the videos changing. At first I was, "Mom, isn't she the best?" Then I became a background character. Then I became a punchline. It started small. A video where she filmed me folding laundry and captioned it, "When your mom does chores better than any cleaning service." I laughed it off. Then came a video where I was cooking dinner and she panned the camera to me and said, half joking, "This is Judy, she basically works here for free, don't tell anyone." Her followers thought it was hilarious. The comments section loved it. I told myself she didn't mean anything by it. I told myself I was being too sensitive. Then came the video that changed everything for me. I was down on my hands and knees scrubbing a stain out of the kitchen tile at 6 in the morning, because my granddaughter had spilled grape juice the night before and I didn't want it to set. I didn't know the camera was on. My daughter's voice came from behind it, bright and playful for her audience. "Everyone say hi to our live-in maid," she said. And the phone panned across my face while I was mid-scrub, hair undone, still in my robe. The video got over 200,000 views. People in the comments called me the help. One person wrote, "Does she get paid or is this indentured servitude, lol?" My daughter replied to that comment with a laughing emoji. I found the video by accident, scrolling before bed. And I sat on the edge of my bed and cried for the first time in longer than I could remember. Not because of the strangers. Strangers say cruel things about people they'll never meet. That's the nature of the internet, and I've made my peace with that. What broke my heart was that my own daughter, the person I'd rebuilt my entire retirement around, saw me on my knees scrubbing her floor and thought the funniest thing she could do was turn me into content. I didn't say anything the next morning. I made breakfast like always. I packed my granddaughter's lunch like always. But something in me had gone very quiet and very still, the way water goes still right before it turns to ice. Over the following weeks, I paid closer attention. I noticed my daughter had stopped introducing me to her new friends as my mother and started saying my roommate or, once, the house manager. I noticed she'd started treating our grocery budget like it was hers alone to control, even though I was the one funding most of it. I noticed she'd stopped asking how my day was. I became furniture. Useful furniture, but furniture all the same. The final straw came on a Tuesday evening. She was hosting friends for dinner, a small gathering to celebrate hitting a follower milestone. I had cooked the entire meal, a recipe that had been in our family for 2 generations, and set the table myself. When her friends arrived, she introduced me at the door with a laugh and said, "Oh, don't mind her, she's just our live-in help. She does everything around here." Her friends laughed politely, unsure if it was a joke. I stood there in my own dining room in the house I owned holding a serving spoon, and I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the guest room I'd been staying in, the guest room in my own house, and I made a decision. I was done being anyone's punchline. I was done funding my own humiliation. And I was done pretending that love excuses cruelty just because it comes wrapped in a joke. The next morning, I called my attorney, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I'd worked with for over a decade named Ms. Whitmore. I explained everything: the house, the notarized agreement, the trust account for my granddaughter, and yes, the videos. She listened quietly, and then she asked me one question that I've carried with me ever since. "Judy," she said, "what do you actually want to happen here? Not what you want to punish her for. What do you want your life to look like a year from now?" I thought about it for a long time before I answered. I didn't want to destroy my daughter. Despite everything, she was still my child, and somewhere in her was the little girl who used to fall asleep holding my thumb. But I also knew that if I stayed silent, if I let this slide the way I'd let so many small comments slide before it, nothing would change. The jokes would keep coming. The disrespect would keep growing. And eventually, I'd disappear entirely inside my own home. So here's what I did. Legally, the house had always been mine. The notarized agreement gave my daughter and granddaughter the right to live there. But it also included a clause, one Ms. Whitmore had insisted on at the time, thank God for careful lawyers, that the arrangement was contingent on the home being treated as a shared family residence, not as a rental property or a business asset. My daughter had, without my knowledge, been using rooms in the house as a backdrop for sponsored content, had let brand representatives visit and film in spaces that included my personal quarters, and had monetized footage of me without my consent, which under the agreement, and frankly under basic decency, she had no right to do. I also discovered something else during that process. My daughter had taken out a personal loan against furniture and renovations in the house, using the property as informal collateral in conversations with a lender, implying an ownership stake she didn't actually have. It wasn't fraud exactly, but it was reckless, and it put my asset at risk without my knowledge. Ms. Whitmore drew up a formal notice. Not an eviction, I want to be clear about that, because I never wanted to throw my granddaughter into instability. Instead, we restructured everything. My daughter would remain in the home, but the informal, handshake nature of our arrangement was over. A real lease was drawn up, with real terms, including a clause that explicitly prohibited any commercial filming inside the home without written consent from me as the property owner. I also formalized my granddaughter's trust fund so that it was locked, professionally managed, and completely outside my daughter's reach until my granddaughter turned 25, protected from being used as leverage or content ever again. Then came the part one still think about the most. I asked Ms. Whitmore to help me write a letter, not a legal document, just a letter, and I recorded myself reading it and sent the video privately to my daughter instead of posting it anywhere. In it, I told her everything I'd felt watching myself get laughed at on her page. I told her that I didn't step in 3 years ago to become her live-in help. I stepped in because I was her mother, and that's what mothers do. I told her that respect isn't something you owe strangers online, while withholding it from the people who saved you. And I told her calmly that starting the following month, the house rules were changing, and if she couldn't treat me like family in her own home, she was welcome to build a home of her own on her own terms with her own name on the deed. I didn't send it to embarrass her. I sent it because for the first time in 3 years, I wanted her to actually hear me, instead of editing me into a 15-second clip for likes. She called me 40 minutes after watching it, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She said she hadn't realized how it looked from the outside, that the videos felt like harmless jokes in the moment, that the algorithm rewarded exaggeration and she'd gotten swept up chasing numbers without thinking about who she was stepping on to get them. I won't pretend that conversation fixed everything overnight. Trust doesn't rebuild itself in a single phone call. But she deleted the videos. All of them. She issued a real apology on her page without naming me, simply saying she treated someone she loved unfairly for the sake of content. and she was taking accountability. Her followers, to my surprise, mostly respected her for it. It's been 8 months since that night I sat in the guest room with a serving spoon still in my hand. Things are different now. I still live in the house, my house, but I have my own space that's respected as mine, my own schedule that isn't assumed to revolve around free labor, and a daughter who slowly is learning the difference between a mother and a maid. My granddaughter's trust fund sits untouched, growing quietly the way it was always meant to. And I've started my own small project, something just for me, sharing pieces of my life on my own terms, in my own words, which, if you're watching this, is exactly what you're seeing right now. I think a lot of us, especially women my age, spend our whole lives being useful to everyone else. We cook, we clean, we save, we sacrifice, and somewhere along the way people start to see the usefulness instead of the person. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done being invisible in my own life. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story tonight, it's this: love someone with everything you have, but never let anyone, not even your own child, convince you that being generous means you've forfeited your dignity. If this story meant something to you, I'd love it if you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. There are more stories where this came from, and I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you watching from tonight? I read every single comment, and knowing this little channel reaches so many different corners of the world means more to me than you know. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and don't let anyone turn your kindness into a punchline. I'm Judy, and I'll see you in the next one.